This week's episode was brought to you by J and AC. Thank you, J and AC. It's with the generous support of listeners just like you, even if you're only letters, that our team of esoteric researchers here at The Whole Rabbit get to keep boring deep intellectual wells of wisdom in search of the gargantuan tentacle monster we've been told lives down here and is attracted to the smell of peanut butter, which is why I'm covered head to toe in this stuff. If you'd like to help us catch the gargantuan tentacle monster for an exclusive interview, or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended edition of this hot and fresh episode, but all our hot and fresh episodes that are vacuum sealed in our Patreon archives. But not only that, I'll send you a high-quality 5x5 vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server, which is actually hosted from the Backrooms and keeps the authorities from triangulating our position. If you enjoyed the free show and would rather save your precious $5 for a tiny cylinder full of multicolored toothpicks that look like little swords, then please consider giving us a like, subscribe, or share on your social media platform of choice. We actually need your help, because while the Discord is more lively than ever, we seem to have an algorithm problem a few months leading up to the election. Go figure. So tell a friend. Tell everyone about the podcast. Or maybe just the weird people you know. We're super grateful. If you subbed at our $20 tier, or will be, please hit me up on direct message and we'll schedule your monthly tarot reading. Get them while they're hot. In this week's show, we traverse the perilous backrooms of creepypasta fame, using its dark mythology, popularized by Kane Pixels, as a case study of the nature and power of liminality. We begin by exploring the liminal space of the backrooms as they first appeared originally in their anonymous creepypasta format alongside other images labeled liminal spaces. We discuss what liminality even means and how it can be creepy, exhilarating, and a powerful, nuanced feature of creation itself. We discover, as with most inspired pieces of art, the horror of the backrooms was a reflection of real-world events at the time. Aside from the mental and spiritual aspects, we also put on our nerd glasses to explore how liminality functions in the world of natural, physical phenomena. We then conclude the free show by revealing where and when the backrooms photo was actually taken, with some lighthearted musing about the synchronicities around this discovery. Then, in the extended show, which is most extended, we continue our discussion of liminality by exploring the dread abode of Catholic limbo, why dogs are inherently liminal by nature, and how the mighty goddess Hecate rules over this entire domain of related ideas. Heck, we even explore in its entirety an easily performed ritual by the late Satanic Church founder Anton Lavey, designed to elevate the enjoyment of liminal spaces to its maximum degree. Yes, it involves touching yourself. We also discuss whether the classical minotaur of Crete was trapped in a labyrinth or a maze, before exploring in detail the potent magical ideas of ancient Egypt as they pertain to liminality specifically. It's pretty surprising how old some of these now popular ideas really are. Then, right before wrapping up, we visit the vault of the Adepts to discuss how liminality is celebrated in the Hermetic tradition and how feminist author Charlotte Perkins Gilman wrote about the backrooms almost exactly how they're portrayed in today's creepypasta, but over 100 years ago. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Did you hear about the kidnapping in the back rooms?
No.
They woke him up. Why do people of all ages love backrooms jokes?
Why?
Because they work on so many levels.
Uh,
Because the backrooms have different levels.
I get it.
I went blind researching the backrooms, so now I'm reading a creepypasta in Braille. Something bad is about to happen. I can feel it. What is Siren Head's favorite dessert?
What?
Ice cream!
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
Because he's loud, because he's got a head that's also a siren. That's loud.
I'm gonna banana split out of here.
Probably because I have you in peels. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just tell you that all your friends are unwitting government spies assigned to you by the oppressive, blind, fate-binding demiurge Church in order to monitor and accelerate your increasing gradual acclimation into total irreversible zombie-like stupor as you run almost as if on autopilot through your daily routines. Nay, we fire up the antiparticle probability flux dispersion array, cross the streams, turn the orgone capacitor to the question mark setting, eat some Pop Rocks, drink some soda, and prepare to venture between the worlds, which curiously smell like grandma's smoking slippers. Because this week, we're discussing the mysterious features of liminality, using the widely known Backrooms creepypasta as our case study and launching off point. Spoiler, if you don't like the Backrooms, just pretend we're talking about The Shining, and the episode still works. Every episode about the whole rabbit is actually about The Shining.
Or the Timaeus.
But this one especially. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known by humanity as the Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by the woofer beyond the wallpaper, Maurice Hama.
Woof woof.
The monster to mortal men, Malachor 5.
Got a light.
And the lagomorphic lady of the labyrinth, Hecate Astra.
Hello. And now a quote from William Blake. In the universe, there are things that are known and things that are unknown, and in between them, there are doors.
But doors to where? What will be on the other side? A prize? True love? Maybe a gift shop? What if you only had one chance to find out? Would you take it? Would you step through to the other side? What if you got lost? The year is 2019. It's the middle of May, and unbeknownst to everyone, the world is about to end. At least for a year or two. In less than a year, people will be anxiously locked inside, staring at their wallpaper, pining idly, eyes glazed over, soul hardening from tedium as days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months, and months turn to what feels like an eternity. For now, though, that's just a fantasy. An innocent one, in fact, that's been quietly sweeping the internet. You happen upon this vision of dark fantasy where you can always trust to find genuinely frightening content. The anonymous image board 4chan. Having avoided the cacophony of political forums and managed to skirt the temptation to browse the litany of adult content, you find yourself in the paranormal section of the website, browsing a truly strange thread labeled liminal spaces. Now, although you might not get into trouble with your teacher or boss, if she suddenly happens to glance over your shoulder, for instance, you'd still have a hard time explaining what it is you're looking at to whoever did look over your shoulder. As you scroll, you find a nearly endless stream of dark, spooky, and foreboding places. Ones that seem, although populated in years past, are now totally abandoned. A popular variation includes the abandoned shopping mall, replete with empty storefronts, drab 80s paint jobs, bathed in cold, uncanny light of flash photography. You can still almost hear the fountain and the distorted echo of children screaming excitedly over the dull murmur of the crowds. Bands of smiling people adorned in tall hair and tacky sweaters, not a cell phone in sight. There's something creepy, yet strangely cozy, even comforting about the images as you scroll past, even if some of them make you feel strange, as if the denied and faded enthusiasm of childhood were a place just around the corner. A haunted, abandoned place you could still visit, just maybe for a moment or two. Step back into a bygone era. There's something that looks like a flooded subway corridor, a brutalist apartment courtyard at night, empty, closed in, yet somehow threatening. An empty hospital hallway that stretches into the distance forever. And finally, you see one that absolutely makes your skin crawl. First, your eyes are bathed in sickly yellow, dappled with faded repeating purple, floral print wallpaper running from top to bottom, along an illogical crisscross of wall sections sandwiched by a beige, carpeted floor and a grid of large, cheap-looking office ceiling tiles. A single, off-centered row of which is segmented with burning squares of cold fluorescent light, the worst kind. There's nothing overtly frightening about the image, but the more you look, the more you feel as if you're being pulled in. A caption accompanies the image, warning.
If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you.
So be careful the next time you feel yourself sinking into the couch. Heck, be careful when you're driving your car. It could happen to you at any moment. Just boredom forever.
I like how the post is specific about, you can no clip in some places, but then there's some wrong places to no clip.
Yeah.
And then you end up in the back rooms. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term no clip, it means it's a video game term that it removes the collision effects in the game so things don't bump into each each other anymore, and you could pass through walls and go wherever you want in the game. So in reality, that would mean going through some sort of wall or...
It's finding a polygon just so and like edging your hitbox into it. But you have to find the polygon that doesn't have collision turned on. Sometimes they miss a few.
That's how we do it nowadays in the MMO world. And you're trying to sneak one past the developers. Back in the day, they used to just put cheat codes in video games.
Oh, like
Right.
wall hacking. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
DN, no clip.
Like in Skyrim, you hold a plate up to a wall and then you use the dashing dragon roar to run into the wall, and the physics of the game no clip you through the floor and the wall and everything. It's stupid. But I like that you can no clip in good places, but then there's bad places.
In this case, this is the worst possible place to no clip.
A soft lock, if you will.
My favorite part of no clipping when you were a kid is if you no clipped into a wall where there was nothing beyond it. It would be like those playing cards in solitaire when you beat the game. It would just be like a inarticulate trail of whatever was on the screen. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
It's like a bunch of after images.
Yes, I assume it's like that in real life. So all of a sudden, back in the middle of 2019, practically overnight, the Backrooms explode. They permeate the entire internet with a litany of fan fiction spin-offs, short stories, and videos. Some more serious than others. With no one to take credit or direct the content, the Backrooms became a community collaboration, with Kotaku commenting that this feature, alongside the distinct lack of overt horror or threat, made the Backrooms stand out from other creepypastas. And it did. But why? What made the Backrooms so compelling? What could have caused such an arguably boring milquetoast brand of unsettling pseudo-horror to become a breakout cultural phenomena? Perhaps the best place to start answering this question would be to figure out what it means to be liminal. After all, the Backrooms first appeared in a bigger thread of images categorized as, quote, liminal spaces. That, of course, begs the question, what is a liminal space, and how exactly do we get there?
So the etymological roots of liminal is, quote, of or pertaining to a threshold, end quote, which is, of course, derived from Latin, limen, meaning threshold, crosspiece, a sill. So essentially a doorway, a transition between one thing or place into or from another.
And if it goes on too long, well, it gets weird and unsettling.
That etymological root limen, it also shares a common place with the Latin word limitem. Nominative is limes, which means a boundary, limit, border, or more specifically, it's actually an embankment between fields. And this is kind of fun for me because it brings up other related words like eliminate, and that comes from the same limen root. But the preceding E comes from X, and together it means to cast out of a threshold or to drive out of a threshold. So there's a bunch of connected words to it, and it kind of gives us a better understanding of that word. So there's also the word limit, and it shares its boundary specifying etymological roots. The same goes for the word subliminal, which implies that it's beyond or below the limit. Limbo also shares a common root, and even our modern word horizon can be related to it. So horizon, which comes from the Greek horizon kyklos, means limiting circle. So the horizo part, which means to divide or to separate, is derived from horos, meaning boundary or landmark. So thresholds, they seem to be a pretty significant identifier for the inherent limitations of life and the transitional stages thereof.
I remember Liminal Duquette was explaining the overall idea of the Kabbalistic tree of life and the creation of the universe, and he's like, a lot of this comes down to just opening up a space for something and creating boundaries.
Makes sense to me.
And I can't help but think of the chariot card when you talk about a fence or a boundary or an enclosed space.
Yes, because the Hebrew letter associated with the chariot is chet, which means fence. It's also like the first letter of the word life, chi. So it's important, boundaries and life, but we'll get there. So aside from door or threshold, the Oxford Languages Dictionary offers, though somewhat tangential to the first, a second meaning of liminal, which can mean not just the transitional stage of something, but the initial or beginning one. This means that something liminal might not just be strange, otherworldly, or between. It might be the primordial state of things to begin with. When we consider both of these ideas, we find these concepts played to the hilt in the world of the Backrooms, and they promise to direct us towards a deeper, occult principle behind the cosmic horror we feel invisibly staring back at us while exploring these liminal spaces. Speaking of which, before we get all technical, I was wondering if any of you were liminal space enjoyers as well, or just have experience with them.
I like liminal spaces.
Same. I think David Lynch Lynch is also a liminal space enjoyer because his movies feel like you're in one sometimes.
Eraserhead is a great example.
Yeah, I think that that's duly noted because the first person perspective, or being, I guess, somehow immersed in the environment that you're experiencing, is part of the liminal feeling. Me personally, I like watching urban exploration videos, like of abandoned buildings and stuff, mostly indoors stuff, and generally like commercial buildings. Malls are my favorite, obviously. And then, just any kind of abandoned business, or like, I know indoor kids' playgrounds are a really popular one.
Yeah.
Just because of how colorful and weird they are. And I love the pool rooms too, like endless pools, and it just doesn't make sense. It's nonsensical.
Slides, into different bodies of water. It's very primordial state feeling at times, womb-like.
Yeah. And to me, though, the best is actually being in the liminal space. So if you ever like just snuck into an abandoned building or something, I've done this like 4 or 5 times. It's super fun. And I like taking pictures, like framing the picture such that it gives you that liminal feeling, just like basically the original concept was people were posting photos, the kind of old shitty photo with the disposable camera and the stupid flash. And I actually went to school in a building, or high school. I went to high school in a building that was built in the 70s and it was doubled as a nuclear fallout shelter.
Oh, yes.
And the architect, this was his first job that wasn't a prison. So, and then by the time I went to high school there, the paint was peeling off in the gym, and like my friend's dad was a janitor, so I got access to the boiler rooms, and during summer break, we'd wander the hallways, and I took a bunch of photos, which I need to like upload somewhere. They're really cool. But I love doing that myself. And I guess as for media, like there's probably countless movies, but Silent Hill is obviously one of the best examples of a liminal space-based video game. Meaning you really get that feeling from wandering the stages. They're pretty much empty except for monsters. It's really off-putting.
Silent Hill is a great example because prior to Silent Hill, it was like, the dog jumped out at me, or there's zombies. And then in Silent Hill, you're like, oh my god, this hallway is making me feel funny. You know what I mean?
And they have long spans too, where nothing happens, and it's on purpose to give you that like empty, am I alone feeling. Oh my god, I'd rather there's something be here than me be alone.
So I guess I loved Silent Hill right away when the first one came out. That's how old I am. So I have been a liminal space enjoyer for some time.
I'm just a bit younger than Luke here, but I'm a big fan of video games, and just the amount of immersion that it was seeing these things change over time. Like I thought the 64 looked photorealistic. Like in my head, when I was looking at those graphics, it was real, and it just got better and better and better. And now it's like kind of nothing new. But at the time, just the whole vibe of it was empty because they couldn't load in enough stuff. So they made artistic choices that ended up, they thought it was lively. In retrospect, it is pretty scary because of how empty everything is. They had to incorporate fog into the world so you couldn't really see too far in games because it didn't render that far and couldn't have that much information going on. So this liminal space stuff I really, really take to heart, and I am an experiencer of it, at least virtually, because in dreams I've also had these types of experiences happen, and the video games I played bled into my imagery in my mind while I dreamt, and I got scared. I had night terrors. I didn't sleep for like a whole month after I saw Silent Hill for the first time.
Oh man, that would keep me up. I would watch my friends play Silent Hill 3, and then I would drive home at night, 30 minutes, and it was often foggy. And it was like 2 a.m. It was so scary.
I was too young to be looking at that kind of stuff, but I'm glad I did.
I went to college at Cal State University, Channel Islands, which was an abandoned mental hospital at the time. Only 20% of the campus was school when I went there. And that whole thing is liminal. And then I'm pretty sure I was conceived on the Queen Mary, which is a big old military vessel. Yeah, it's very haunted. But one of the most haunted places, or probably the most haunted places in the whole ship, is the pool room. And of course, this vessel was created around the turn of the century. It's all Art Deco, and that like cramped, foggy, something is wrong, the space is weird, and the color looks old, and like, it's real. That place, apparently, so many people quit working there just because they have too many weird paranormal experiences. But yeah, pool rooms.
And I'm a big fan of really fancy architecture, and the ones that especially use the forced perspective techniques to make things look bigger, or like they're all in a line from that point of view. But when you go to the other side, it's like this whole other idea going on where it's all separated, or it makes a different shape, completely opposite of the other side, right?
Like you go there and then suddenly you and your friend become hobbits?
It's like fancy architecture techniques that are like, if you stand here in the cathedral, you can see Jesus's face. The organ is his beard, And if you're here on the spring equinox, like the light will shine through that window and his eyes will light up and have a halo because of the way we did the mirrors and the glass. Those kinds of things I've always been a big fan of once they were pointed out to me. And in cathedrals as well, they incorporate paintings that are hyper realistic and give depth to the physical shape of the cathedral, so that when you walk in and look up at the domed roof, it's like angels are guarding heaven with God sitting on the throne at the very top.
Yeah, it becomes like a porthole or a window that you can look through.
It looks like a portal, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys like those magic eye paintings?
I used to hate them, and then I figured out how to do them.
Wow, it's a schooner!
You dumb bastard. It's not a schooner, it's a sailboat.
A schooner is a sailboat, stupid head.
You know what? There is no Easter Bunny! Over there, that's just a guy in a suit!
I like them.
I know forced perspective can be used for political satire. Like you are hired to paint the royal family, but then if you look at the painting from a different angle, it's like a skull. Like if you tip the painting at an angle far enough, the imagery warps into something else.
Yeah.
Kind of like those cheesy Halloween decorations of the frames with the holographic stuff.
Yeah, there's a really cool painting. I believe it's called All Is Vanity, and it's of a girl brushing her hair and doing her makeup in a mirror, and it's all Victorian age looking, but it's also a skull. That's kind of like a forced perspective painting. You can make it in paintings or a puzzle. Sometimes that's how you figure out puzzles. It's you have to stand there to see the word, the password to the keypad.
Or is it kind of like the Silence of the Lambs with the skull, and the skull is actually made of naked women?
Yep.
Yes. That's a good example of liminal, because it's is it a moth or is it women? Or is it death? What is it? And so something that's liminal, you can't really count on it. It's going to shift and change form, almost like the way things work in dreams.
It kind of reminds me a bit of, there's a reoccurring theme that I have in some of my dreams when I lucid dream. If I'm going somewhere specific, or you could say if I'm on a mission or something, I have this kind of a portal hub, you could call it, that shows up or that I manifest. And it tends to take the filter of an old hotel. And it's not always the same, but it's an old wooden, there's wood floors, usually wooden walls. It's kind of old, but the doors, wherever it is that I'm headed, maybe I go through a door, and on the other side of the door is actually a big lake with a dock and a big mountain. It's a whole landscape inside this room. And then maybe you open up a different door and it's you're in an alleyway at nighttime. Or, I kind of use a hotel as a kind of portal hub, and that's also a liminal kind of space. For me, it's less spooky than the Backrooms, but that's because it's an intentional threshold area.
And well, this sounds like a dream cathedral, the type of which we see in, let's say, Dr. Sleep. It has an intentional purpose. It can be used ritualistically, even to remember things as a memory tool.
Or forget.
Oh, you're talking about memory palaces?
Yes. It sounds like what you're talking about is the astral dream version that allows you to travel, not just recall information.
Yeah, it's if I have somewhere that I want to go, sometimes it's easier for me to visualize it as a hotel, and I just go through the door to wherever it is that I'm going. And then other times I can just drop through the floor of the reality into whatever other reality.
You see, that's the danger with the Backrooms. You don't want to no-clip through the floor and then suddenly end up in the 600 million square miles of office space.
I mean, you don't want to no-clip through the floor unless you know what you're no-clipping directly into.
Giant mouth of your mother-in-law. Feed me legumes.
Feed mama legumes?
So anyway, if anyone caught the description, 600 million square miles of backrooms is a lot of backrooms. For instance, the Earth has only about 200 million square miles of surface area, so that means the backrooms are at least 3 times the size of that. Naturally, this means the backrooms necessarily cannot be on Earth. So where exactly are they? How could something apparently man-made be so enormous? Where the heck does all the carpet come from? And what does it all mean? The horror behind this idea, as silly as it first sounds, reflects the terrifying, raw truth of our situation, that the world we occupy is but the very tip of an iceberg, and the wide world of things we know is but the tiniest piece sticking above the surface, like a lotus blossoming from atop a noxious sea of muddy slime. In a sense, this makes the backrooms the base level of reality, and it is vast, chaotic, impersonal, cruel, and above all, dangerous.
For me, the backrooms are, archetypically speaking, a modernized urban edition of the wilderness at the edge of the campfire. Kind of a bit like Missing 411, but for the city, or Spirited Away.
Like how they say in fairy lore, if you take the wrong turn in the woods, you may happen into the fairy realm, especially if you've been dumb enough to walk through any strange doors built into trees, or eat food offered to you by their kind. Then you're probably trapped in the fairy realm forever. There's a lot of ways to imagine how this looks, but it's a lot like the backrooms, where let's say you find yourself going through a strange door, and then it disappears behind you. Or maybe you wander off the path and things start looking a bit strange, so you backtrack and you try and go back to something that looks familiar, but you just end up going in circles forever. Things always look familiar, but always a bit off at the same time, like you're looking at it from the wrong direction and you can't quite resolve it. Or there's something new that should be old, or something old that should be new, and you can never find your way out. You could even find a whole world inside of a tree, bigger on the inside.
It's like the cover art from H.P. Lovecraft's Dream Quest of Unknown Cadiff. It's like the tree with the staircase inside of it.
I'm actually not familiar.
The TARDIS from Doctor Who.
I was about to say that one.
Yeah. I like this whole backrooms thing because it really is like I think it's become so popular because it's such a deep set instinctual fear that we have, but it's just had a modern facelift.
And even its name, Backrooms. Like, how many thousands of years did humans sit around a fire being like, at the edge of that fire? That's where it gets weird. You don't want to go there into the back rooms. It's not really a room, but you get it.
You take the wrong turn and then you can't see the fire anymore, and then you're totally lost. You'll never get back.
There's always something weird and hungry that's going to get you too.
Or just being lost in the space itself is like it's, swallowing you whole.
The elements, yeah.
You could just tumble down a cliff, which is something that happens in the backrooms in pretty much every video. Now, in both of these metaphors, spirit beings like the Fae are almost always possessed of some human-like form of bureaucracy or industriousness. Perhaps even as a form of parody. This is also true in UFO abduction cases for some reason. Manners and customs are usually important. Likewise, there's something to be said for the exchange of ideas between human and spirit worlds, whether it's Azazel giving people agriculture, Prometheus offering Greeks fire, or Klaxor 5 giving Lockheed Martin anti-gravitic boosters in exchange for human test subjects. Either way, there's been a long-running myth of a relationship between the ideas that humans make use of and the supernatural beings that also use these ideas in their own form of industry. And so alongside the mysterious force of inspiration itself, the connection between the spirit world and science is, well, too often overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps even the spirits or the Fae occupying it, like, what if they aren't there? I mean, maybe this is a space that sits between worlds and was never meant to be accessed by anybody. Behind the curtain or through the veil of reality itself, so to speak. By getting there, you've essentially slipped outside of physical reality and into the void that actually encapsulates it, which is even more chilling than if there were, beings that live there.
It is kind of spooky. I mean, how often do people take a DMT trip and the spirit beings they meet are like, you're not supposed to be here?
I like the topic of liminality because it isn't only about things like the backrooms and like this internet aesthetic. To explain myself, for an example, Plato had his school outside of the city, and it's there that the fundamentals of the Western culture, democracy, right, and philosophy, classical philosophy, are sort of worked on. Maybe he's not the inventor of philosophy, of course, but he knew that he had to establish this place outside of the middle of the culture that he's a part of. He's an outsider, but he's still part of the culture. He's not completely removed from it.
So he and his school are liminal.
Right. And we know that the ancient Greeks did do a lot of work in the sciences, the liberal arts, they call them, because they were trying to tackle the problem of outdated ideas and trying to get the masses on board with how to be smart and help each other, not just through pure strength, but work smarter, not harder mentality. And it did humanity ultimately for the better, outside of the box ideas, at least compared to the age before where it was so barbaric.
Yeah, back in the day, it was like, if you were born to farmers, that's what you're expected to know. But it was the Greeks who were like, well, we gotta make educated speakers. And to make educated speakers, they have to be educated on a lot of things. So what if we just start educating people on a lot of different things so they can be educated about a lot of different things? And here we are today. I think it was a good idea.
But it was a new idea, and it's almost like Plato knew he couldn't do that inside of an environment he's trying to break out of.
It is still a new idea, which is why it could still go wrong. And also what makes it fun.
True.
See, I learned to hate my country before I went to college, you see. So when I got there, I was prepared.
That's a good way of putting like a rebel fighting against his own government into a liminal context.
I mean, a good college campus should be a liminal state because you're creating a new generation of thinkers. You're hoping to implement positive changes in your society. And so the people that are going to implement those changes are going to be like, I don't like this. I don't like that. This needs to change. This is unfair. And so I was joking, but it does kind of make sense. But bringing up Plato's school is a really compelling example of how liminality functions because it transcends categories and it opens doorways to novelty on multiple levels of reality, mental, spiritual, physical. For instance, it can be assumed the vibe at Plato's university with its strict oaths of asceticism, nerds wandering everywhere, and vegetarianism was totally alien to the bustling marketplaces of Athens. You had to pass through a liminal space, the wilderness, to transition to such a different vibe. This being said, vibe is, despite being a popular slang, a perfect way to describe this phenomena on a human level. Ever hear, your vibe decides your tribe? Well, it's easy enough to understand that our mental or spiritual vibe will bring us into contact with people we groove with. Also a descriptive term. We must cross a markedly ungroovy, chaotic, or liminal place as we pass from one groove to the next. And this is no small point. It's reflected in the physical phenomena of cymatics, the study of which shows this exact principle at play in a way our eyes can physically see. In the first half of the 20th century, the term cymatics was coined by Swiss physician and student of Rudolf Steiner, Dr. Hans Jenny, but it was a phenomena that had been observed for centuries. For instance, on July 8, 1680, Robert Hooke observed wave-like patterns associated with modes of vibration on glass plates. To achieve this, Hooke ran a bow, like from a violin, along the edge of a glass plate covered in flour, and once stabilizing a specific vibrational frequency, he began to see patterns emerge in the flour. Later, a German musician and physicist, Ernst Clady, noticed that if you use standardized equipment and uniform plates, that each specific tone or vibration would create a unique vibrational pattern of material on the plate with higher frequencies, producing more complex and intricate patterns.
That's how we know it's a T-Rex that's coming, right?
Yes!
And we can predict the vibe of the incoming T-Rex as well.
It's running. It's probably pissed.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
move.
mad.
Don't move.
It's just a giant cat. So the part where liminality comes into play is that between each distinctive pattern, most notably between a configuration of higher and lower complexity, there's a phase where the vibrating medium appears to be all disoriented chaos. In this way, different configurations of order had to be first dissolved and turned into disorder before a new system of order would be made to form. As Mal so astutely pointed out, this happens on a societal level as well. As many esotericists and conspiracy theorists may know, the motto of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry has long been Ordo ab Chao, which means order from chaos. And considering that Masonry has long concerned itself with infrastructure, well, this makes some sense. On a personal level, it can be comforting to know that a sudden decline of fortune, comfort, and success can oftentimes be the pullback on the slingshot before rocketing forward. We must pass through a stage of uncomfortable chaos or liminality before entering a new phase at a higher level. It's like a built-in, if you want to make a cake, you gotta break some eggs kind of rule to the universe.
Rules are meant for breaking.
And liminality is where all the stuff gets broken.
Like your bones.
Is that a threat?
Maybe.
Well, how else is Mari supposed to get a bone for her dog head?
PetSmart?
Pets. Lame joke.
If your threats are liminal, the police can't charge you, right? So was it a threat or just advice? I don't know.
Being detained by a police officer is a liminal state.
It is. It is. And so is jail in a sense. And you also get trapped there. But this whole having to pass through a liminal stage between stages of order, we actually find the same principle in aeronautics, where breaking the sound barrier is a term used to describe the relatively chaotic and thundering transition point between above and below the speed of sound. At some point, you pierce through the bow crest of your own vibrations, and that's when you can see a crazy circular wall of clouds that quickly accumulate and disperse around the craft. Pilots describe this transition as getting more and more bumpy and loud until suddenly everything in the cabin quiets down and smooths out again. So like as you approach that barrier, and then smooth. So the physical component of liminality, paired of course with its spiritual and mental counterparts, well, it's part of what makes the extended lore of the Backrooms fiction so eerily compelling.
Right, because I guess it's giving the masses a slow drip of perhaps this spiritual and mental lesson of liminality through the Backrooms as a meme.
Yes, and we chose the Backrooms because they're a perfect case study for what liminality is. And even the liminal and how it plays into creativity in general is well represented here. Because as we'll see, much like every other popular or well-loved piece of art that speaks to people, it's drawing from something meaningful in the human experience.
Well, the most interesting part, too, is that the entirety of the Backrooms lore came from a picture and that short paragraph at the beginning that I read. There was no copypasta story, spooky story. There was, no tangential act 1, act 2, act 3.
Yes.
But up to the audience, all of these people came together in unison to form some kind of order and kind of break down what exactly this picture was.
Right. And so what Mal's getting at is like, it would not have done that if it didn't happen to check all of the boxes all the way down the sheet into places we can't even see. And that's
it definitely picked at some type of archetype or egregore that already existed within
absolutely
humanity.
So I think to get a better idea of some of those aspects, we're going to need to get into the details. Like, how did the Backrooms evolve and actually get a story attached to it?
Well, like I said, a lot of users began to speculate on their own, and then forums popped up, and I'm sure you saw there's like a wiki about Backrooms, but pretty much anyone can contribute, and there's forums, and there's games on Roblox, there's people make all sorts of stuff, videos, to explain how someone gets trapped there, or so all of these stories start to spiral out of control, and the fandom grew exponentially. I think, though, there were some really standout stories, and I could go on and on about it because I've looked through a lot of the catalogs of videos and stories that these people come up with, but I think the most compelling author of a work concerns the Backrooms, and I'd argue one of the main canon fandoms of the entire meme would be Kane Pixels. He started making these found footage videos based on that image from 4chan. I believe he started when he was either like 16 or 18 or something like that, in that range. But over these years, he's made an entire series based on it, and now he's getting a movie contract through A24 Studio. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's still in the works. It's not even out yet.
But his own self-published series is called The Async Tapes, and this is what originally started his kind of canon of the Backrooms that a lot of people subscribe to, and you'll see a lot of elements from his stories in other spin-off works. So in his Async Tapes, the Backrooms are portrayed as this hyperdimensional space which is tapped into using high-frequency energy technology. It kind of harkens to like CERN, Project Montauk, Tesla technology, and other kind of popular media like Stargate. The Stanley Parable game was super popular like years before this happened, but that is a perfect example of the kind of vibe that we're talking about here. And I'd even argue some elements of like an eldritch horror influence. I can't help but see some of the same themes going on like in Stranger Things with the Upside Down, and how the government in that story used an electromagnetic machine to essentially tear a door through space-time, much in the same way.
Now, I'm fairly certain the Illuminati faction responsible for this sort of behavior would be the Gnomes of Zurich. Those would be the ones that did the rituals in our CERN episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, them's the Gnomes of Zurich. I'm just throwing it out there. Now that I've said that. So these ideas were in the public sphere. It was something about the presentation of the Backrooms where people were like, oh yeah, this is it.
Yeah, and it melds well with a lot of other stuff, like you said, that's floating around in the zeitgeist at the time.
Honestly, hate to sound like a broken record, but David Lynch did it pretty early in modern media. He deserves a lot of credit for that.
So in this particular series, the space which contains the Backrooms is portrayed as a pocket dimension that it can intelligently morph and change in some way as you progress, always unstable, showing it's perhaps even alive.
Like the wilderness.
Sometimes it manifests long hallway with repeating similarities that seem to never change and never end, but other times the terrain changes so quickly you can't even backtrack your path, and sometimes it doesn't change at all, giving you this like false sense of hope almost. With victims or those that no-clipped into the Backrooms, showing symptoms like coughing and shortness of breath within hours, the story seems to hint that the environment actually begins to consume its victims with some kind of black, gooey bacterial growth or contagion. Those who stayed inside the Backrooms long enough to die from a fall, exhaustion, or starvation are then slowly consumed by this mutated bacteria or fungus, possibly later being integrated into an autonomous chimera of sorts, known as an entity. These creatures roam within the structure, or complex as it's called, sometimes stalking unsuspecting people lost inside, probably to consume them. And their howls sound like a variety of horrifically distorted and distressed human voices yelling, screaming, and groaning.
That is not a person!
Interesting how during the height of the Backrooms popularity, we were all locked inside due to a deadly and largely mysterious respiratory threat.
Yeah, no way to escape or even heal yourself. So in the culture that unfolded around the Backrooms meme itself, this particular version is where the term threshold is used. And this is what the main portal, when they first opened the portal into the Backrooms, is called, as the concept of these scientists and military people that explore the Backrooms, decked out in these full body yellow hazmat suits. That's where the source of this image is when you're looking at media of the Backrooms. It turns out the researchers in this iteration must wear a barrier due to the respiratory contaminants that seem to be present within the pocket dimension. So as things progressed with the research, many innocent civilians just in cities and everyday life began to no-clip out of reality into the Backrooms. And this also no-clipping out of the level happens in the Stanley Parable game as well.
This is a fun detail that the aging PC nerd or the paranoid conspiratorial-minded Gnostic will get the most mileage out of. If you grew up in the 90s, the target audience for the Backrooms content, you may have spent some time goofing around with cheat codes. Maybe you tried no-clipping once.
That's the name of my anti-circumcision riot team, No Clip.
Nice.
Essentially, as we mentioned before, it was a cheat code, but it would allow you to no-clip through walls and find areas that were either hidden or totally inaccessible under normal conditions. I recall one section in Duke Nukem 3D. If you did the no-clip, it made it so you could reach a place that was utterly impossible. And there was even a message left by the developer saying, "You're not supposed to be here." And so, while this is of course silly and fun, the horror aspect arrives when we consider that the discovery of something like the Backrooms may indicate that our lives and everything in it, that everything we have ever known, in fact, is just a cheap, fabricated illusion by an intelligence on an order of existence that makes us, by comparison, little more than ants in an ant farm.
Or pixels on a screen.
Perhaps we are little else besides the NPC playthings of an evil, godlike being. The Gnostics, of course, would have identified this as the Demiurge and his archons. Even without invoking Gnosticism specifically, we find the same paranoia reflected in the public sphere as the prolific belief that we might be living inside a simulation.
If you load up game maps with developer tools, you can often see built-out test levels, rooms, areas, and objects outside the areas the player is supposed to occupy. These inaccessible places scattered with areas and objects left by the developers as they build the level would look familiar yet uncanny to a player character who happens upon them. Things like that are out of place, redundant, somehow, devoid of signs of life, or seem to have no intent or purpose. A storage area backstage, behind the second curtain, a place where the player is not supposed to see. One of the most interesting things about this feeling that liminality creates, though, is if you do see a clue that you aren't alone and other people may be around, like seeing any chairs, computers, makeshift beds, handwritten notes, or even vehicles, it is almost more terrifying than seeing no signs of life at all. Being alone and not being alone are equally terrifying in these types of spaces.
It's almost like in these pool rooms, when you started off, that slide didn't have any wear and tear, and then the next time you got back to that room, there was a little bit of damage to it, and then like the third time there's a note there. It's like, I didn't write that note. I didn't make those markings. I never went down that slide.
Or you're just standing still and you hear splashing down a long corridor. It's like, you know something's probably there.
Somebody else has played the escape room and failed.
So back to Kane's work. In the short films, as the government and private company involved in the research opens the threshold and begins to explore deeper and deeper into the complex, using monitoring devices, cameras, tape on the floor to track their path, the complex begins to become larger and more expansive than they could have ever calculated. And at the same time, anomalies begin to appear more and more frequently throughout the world, among everyday people, as space-time ruptures and tears. The more the researchers push into the complex and attempt to tame it and research it, the more it begins to spread to the rest of reality, like the thin walls of a balloon slowly stretching and tearing in multiple places. In one of the videos, a chart is shown of missing persons cases in the US, and you see two distinct spikes that occur after the first two initial tests of the portal device. Then, on the third test date, where the threshold is open permanently, the missing cases reports begin to increase exponentially and show no sign of tapering off.
So it is Mystic 411.
It kind of is. In this universe, the way it's explained is the power that they had to use to open it was immense. It caused an earthquake. And it also kind of, I don't know, it had something to do with like a solar storm going on at the same time that gave it enough power to break through. But once it broke through, it started breaking all over the place.
So the unspoken thing here, and I think we're gonna miss if I don't bring it up right now, is that as we watch Kane Pixels' work, we realize that whatever organization has opened up this threshold using the technology they acquired from the gnomes of Zurich, they're not just exploring the backrooms all willy-nilly. They have a capitalistic business venture, technological venture capital purpose. And that purpose is to use the backrooms as either transportation or storage.
Or even they were trying to build out homes in there for the expanding population. So instead of going to Mars and colonizing it, the government was planning to actually just have people live and work in there.
Earth people. I was born on Jupiter.
You know, if you hang out in the occult scene long enough, eventually someone will tell you this is what actually happened to Atlantis. They opened up the portal to the backrooms. They're like, we could fit all our crystals and statues and toning bowls in here. And then they started moving them in, and their whole civilization collapsed.
The next thing you know...
It just makes me think of alternate dimension Truman Show that goes on forever.
Yeah, that's spooky.
Or Groundhog Day.
Where did those Mayans go? Backrooms.
I think it's pretty insane, for sure, how fast the following for the backrooms was kind of amassed in such short amount of time. In the real world, it could be said that the years between 2019 and 2024 felt like its own liminal time-space event, because it seems like more stuff happened in between those years than the stuff that happened from like 9/11 to before the shutdowns, right?
Yeah.
Because after 9/11, it was just, we're at war. And then during the shutdown, it's like, well, here's all this other bullshit.
Bush was like, okay, listen, I know they blew up the thing. I know that we're gonna completely redo our entire foreign policy, so we're the bad guys. But damn it, whatever you do, don't stay inside. Go to the mall. Go buy your kids video games. Buy a new SUV. Send your kids to camp. Spend money. If we change our way of life, then the terrorists have won. So get out there and spend. And then with COVID, it was like, hey, everybody, why don't you just like stay inside for like 7 months, okay? It's like maybe a year.
It's going to be 2 weeks.
It's going to be 2 weeks, but
2 weeks.
maybe it's going to be like 2 more weeks, maybe 2 months.
I mean, in Canada, it's like 2 years.
And we're not trying to make a statement about the reality that COVID was. Or is.
We're not. But
it's just the whole experience is very liminal.
It's liminal AF. It's the definition of liminal.
I think it's because our mind spaces were changed so drastically by all of the rules and the shutting down of everyday life. I mean, everybody's mental state was entrained in this. I mean, you felt trapped inside your own head.
Dude, it was like, hey, we're going to go back to work in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks go by and be like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back in 1 week, but we have this week to figure out our policies, and we're going to change our policies based on the latest data. And then a week goes by, they're like, actually, they changed the regulations again, so actually we have to change our policies so we can open up in 2 weeks. But at first, we have to close down for 2 weeks. We're going to open 2 weeks, and we're going to close in 2 weeks.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mari. I was totally prepared for it. My lifestyle didn't change at all. I didn't talk to anybody or go anywhere. I hermited so hard.
Well, we can't all be so lucky.
I couldn't even get my driver's license. I
was like, oh, right. That's right. I guess if I get groceries, I have to put a mask on. Other than that, nothing changed.
I was afraid of being arrested for visiting my...
Listen, before we get all passionate talking about the lockdowns, let's just say it was called the Great Reset for a reason. That was the liminal state that we were in. I mean, let's be fair. Some of the horror from both the lockdowns and the backrooms is the same. It's a total suspension of normality under conditions of oppressive monotony, being trapped inside and isolated, hiding from a vague but lethal threat that maybe can or cannot turn corners. How long does this go on for? Is this the new normal?
I violently refuse the new normal.
Things changed is all I'm trying to bring up. And that it was a threshold moment and a lot happened.
Listen, all I'm saying is if you don't like the new Star Wars, it's because you like Hitler. And it's not okay, Mari.
So, of course, this is the time frame that the backrooms rose to popularity. And, well, I'm not a huge fan of the general online attitude and the aesthetic that everybody else has on the subject. I'm still intrigued in the backrooms and getting to the bottom of the mystery that is, where did this image come from? How real can we make this experience?
It's a cover-up.
So in the case of the backrooms, this image, it generated a whole Discord group dedicated to finding where it came from by analyzing the metadata and doing the hard work to pretty much do what the CIA or the FBI will do if they need to track down where that picture was taken and when.
They will find you.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot hide from these people that make Discord groups to find where that Backrooms image was taken, those are the people that will hunt you down if you do something stupid like hurt a cat. They'll find you. If you're Shia LaBeouf, they'll find you.
So metadata is that sort of hidden information. It's like the genes of our memes. It's parts of code that turn the image into a digital format itself. There's things you can't scrub away from it even if you delete it, right?
Super secret spy analysis stuff.
So, yeah. For the Backrooms, it took a few years, but through the use of the Internet Archives as the Wayback Machine, eventually this Discord group found out that the Backrooms image is real, but exactly what it is, and where and when it was taken, the picture. So it turns out the Backrooms is in the good old USA. The original Backrooms image was taken on June 12th, 2002, on a street called Oregon in Wisconsin, a town called Oshkosh.
It has a world-famous air show. I've attended it at least once.
The low quality of the image, which is sort of signature for liminal spaces now, is due to the use of an affordable Sony CyberShot camera. Another signature of the image is the unintentional use, maybe it is intentional, but the use of a Dutch angle, which is sort of a tilted frame shot to give the cinematographic effect, telling us that there's an uneasiness or tension meant to be emphasized in the shot, which totally synergizes with the Backrooms lore. As it turns out, the photo was taken to document the renovation of an old furniture store, which had plenty of false walls and mocked up home interiors built inside of a building. And the property of that furniture store was bought by Hobbytown, a hobby store business. So the pictures of the original image on the original website, it states that there was like extensive water damage, and eventually this whole interior was completely redesigned. Redesigning anything is liminal itself. It's the state of transformation, right? So that's kind of cool.
I mean, even Hobbytown is like making things from scratch.
True. So furthermore, which I find really interesting, is that the name of this business today, if you go to this location, is called Revolution Racing, which is a RC car, remote controlled car racing shop. Revolutions, the cycle of things, are big discussion when it comes to the philosophical or anthropological definition of liminality, which we might get into a little bit more into detail in the extended part of the show.
Prior to wrapping things up, though, let's talk about the tarot association with Revolution Racing. And the tarot racing would be associated with the chariot, and the chariot is associated with the zodiacal sign of Cancer, or the crab, or the scarab beetle that itself moves through a liminal space, specifically the underworld, or Dubot.
There's also a crashed vehicle, specifically a car, in the Backrooms in Kane's series.
So that being said, as we recently discussed in our Illuminati card trading game, it's not necessarily a requirement that an artist needs to have seen the secret plan the Illuminati has laid out in detail in order to prophesy future events in their artwork. It seems most likely that artists, and manifest reality itself, are merely drawing from the same well of inspiration or ideas. The astral world, or the collective unconscious, as psychology would call it. This sounds a bit more sober than exchanging UFO schematics with gnomes from the fifth dimension, but it does imply an occult power of liminality at play. And for those who wish to know about the occult mechanics of liminality, what it's capable of, where we're gonna go when we die, what it all has to do with dogs, Laveyan Satanism,
Ugly wallpaper,
mazes, labyrinths, and of course, Egyptian mythology, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you this extended episode, but all our extended episodes going back before the Backrooms, and I'll send you a 5x5 high quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, guaranteed to create a portal into and out of the Backrooms. But not only that, I'll send you the secret key to our Discord server, where you can talk to us about the strange things that you've discovered underneath your house. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew, pew, pew.